Again, I have a 4-year-old. I'm looking at the future of what education and work is going to look like for him. Over the past 10 years, I'm sure you've seen it. Girls are crushing boys in every measure, academics, work, all of that, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I'm curious if you think you understand why we're seeing that trend occurring and what I can do as a father for my son to help him buck that trend and not be that typical boy that we're seeing that's falling behind his female peers.
Right. Years ago, I wrote a book called Boys Should Be Boys, and I'd probably be blackballed if I wrote that again with that title. Um, but here's the problem. You're right. Girls are excelling because they've been pushed to excel. They've been pushed into STEM. There also is a early elementary school and middle elementary school bias towards girls. Okay. Girls sit there, they color in the lines, they say yes, they say no, they don't jump up and spit spitballs at people. They're not bouncy and they're not shooting pencils at people. And the problem is boys are much more likely to get labeled as something very early on. If I had a quarter for every third, second, fourth grade boy that comes into my office with a note from his teacher saying, I really think he has ADHD, I would be a very wealthy person. So first of all, boys in the early school years are working in a system that is not helping them. It's hurting them. A lot of the early elementary school teachers are women, and they don't like when boys are giving them a hard time. And so educationally, they're sort of primed to fall behind. After that, I really believe girls are given a lot of attention. They're pushed hard. I think they're pushed harder than a lot of boys are. Boys are getting very mixed messages about what masculinity is all about and what being a boy is all about. They're almost trained, at least in public schools, to feel bad if they're a boy who likes to shoot targets. I mean, if you like to shoot targets or skeet or hunt with your dad, you don't tell anybody because you're ashamed of who you are. And so I think psychologically, boys, there's a lot working against boys. Boys are being shamed early on. And I think what happens is their self-esteem goes down and they don't believe that they can perform as well as their female counterparts. Boys typically read later than girls do. And so early on, they feel like they're behind. And then again, I think I'd like to see a study on how often are boys called on in class versus girls. I'll guarantee you girls are called on much more frequently. And so I think that mindset follows them into junior high and then in high school. It's not an intelligence issue. It's a psychological manipulation of what's going on in their environment where they're getting messages that, maybe they can and maybe they not. If they're a little bouncy, they're a pain to people and they need medication. If they like to shoot and they like to pretend they're hunting bears, well, just don't talk about it. On the other side, if they have more feminine character qualities, by all means talk about that. That's terrific. So they're floating in no man's land, and no one's teaching them how to be a strong masculine boy who likes himself, who's smart, and is going to just run with things and run with life and feel good about who he is. So I really don't think it's an academic issue or an intellectual issue. I think it's a social and psychological issue.
Yeah, it's a really good point across the board you were making there. I'm just even my own experience. And I was a really good student, right? 4.0, like worked really hard, I was in detention all the time, sweeping rocks after school all the time. I got suspended once. Like,
Yeah.
Boys are just wired different. So I was still getting straight A's and still getting in trouble all the time.
My husband, who's my medical partner, we started practice together. When he was in early elementary school, the teacher would punish him and put him in the hall and he'd run home. And his dad would haul him back, and the crazy teacher next day put him in the hall. He'd run away. That's what boys do. But we don't tolerate that. We don't tolerate the antics of boys. One of the biggest mistakes a teacher will make is they want to punish a boy. They make him stay in for recess. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? That's the word. Get a tree, a big tree, put it on the playground and let them climb up and down it. Let them work that energy out. So if they fall, they're going to break their arm. Oh, well, move on, let them be who they are. And as much as we say, oh, we want to champion who our kids are and help them be their true selves, we don't do that. We don't do that. With boys who are getting in trouble and they're throwing rocks and doing things that are almost illegal, we don't go, oh, you're just ridiculous. You're so silly. We really come down hard on them for being a masculine boy. And that's really not right.
It's amazing. When my son is physically exhausted, he pays incredible attention to me. He listens the best when he's drenched in sweat and can barely breathe.
Exactly.
It's amazing. He's tired. He pays attention. Yeah.
One of the best things, and studies bear this out, that a dad can do with his son and with his kids is wrestle. Physically exhaust that kid. Boys bond with their dads through physical play and contact. Now, your wife will get furious because you're not helping out, but you're off out playing with the kids. Play with them, exhaust them, run them around the house, chop wood with them, because that's really how you bond with them and get through to them and how they learn to really connect with you.
It's such a beautiful point. And my quick follow-up to, you said it's not an academic issue. It's a psychological issue, you think. So tactically, we want to help change this trend, right? With this podcast and equipping men to do differently. What are your top recommendations then for in the day-to-day men need to be aware of and kind of stand up and fight back against the trend?
Yeah. Well, listen to your gut. I mean, I think that most men, the overwhelming majority of good men, don't follow their gut. They sort of allow it to be blocked by, well, I don't think I should say that. And I don't think, and my wife doesn't like firearms, even though my son is picking up a stick and shooting at imaginary things in the front yard. Go out to him and say, hey, great. What are you shooting? What are you doing? So if you see a traditionally masculine character quality in your son arising, encourage it. Tell him it's wonderful. The same thing in yourself. If you find that you have a 13-year-old daughter and she's going into school in clothes that you think are very inappropriate, even though your wife says, no, that's the way all girls dress, stop her. Don't let her go to school in clothes like that. Your gut says, no, that's not okay. Then act on that. If your gut says it's really fine for my son to be doing this, it's fine for my son to take a risk. We are so risk averse as parents. We don't want our kids to get hurt or have anybody say anything bad to them, whatever. But we need to let our sons and our daughters take some risks. And dads are pretty good at that because they've taken risks, right? What did you say? You used to throw rocks all over? Act on your own instincts. And if they're masculine, wonderful. If you see them in your son, wonderful. And if you see some strength in your daughter, champion it and help her run with it. But don't hold back and dampen down what you're going to say because you feel someone's not going to like it. Who cares?